Welcome to Aliens versus Predator, the limited review show where we'll be reviewing every single Alien and Predator movie in the Alien Predator franchise. I'm one of your hosts, Chris Waterman, joined this evening by Mr. George Aravalo from Miami, Florida.
What up? What up?
And we have Mr. Adam Gumbert, aka The Predator, from Lexington, Kentucky.
So, this is where having dreads comes in handy because you can buy a $20 mask on Amazon and kind of look like the Predator. It's a great time, Chris. I'm happy to be here.
I think it looks super. It looks super cool, actually.
It does, yeah. With
It's an
the
airsoft helmet because it was either an airsoft helmet or a $150 replica of the Predator version of the mask.
I think you chose wisely there, my
Yeah.
friend. So, on today's episode, we are going to be reviewing Predator, the 1987 John McTiernan film, as well as giving our first ranking. So, we've reached the benchmark of 3 films. So, for a reminder, for both old and new listeners alike, we'll be doing rankings at 3, 6, 9, and 12 to rank these films. So, this will be our first ranking, which is pretty exciting. As always, I like to start us off with a little bit of trivia before we get into the discussion of the film. A couple of my favorite things here. Apparently, "Get to the chopper" is Arnold Schwarzenegger's personal favorite catchphrase of all time from this film, which is cool. The Predator was originally played by one Jean-Claude Van Damme, who complained about the suit constantly and hated that he was going to be essentially an uncredited special effect. So he quit 2 days into filming. There are some photos online of him in the original Predator suit, which looks nothing like what they settled on, and that's a good thing. You'll see what I'm talking about if you Google the original Predator costume. There was quite a bit of good hazing on set, especially between Jesse Ventura and Arnold Schwarzenegger, with Jesse Ventura finding out that he had the bigger bicep and betting Arnold Schwarzenegger a bottle of champagne that whoever had the bigger bicep would pay for a bottle of champagne for the other, not knowing that Arnold Schwarzenegger actually had the bigger bicep and told the costume department to tell Jesse Ventura that he had the bigger bicep. So he kind of tricked him. So Schwarzenegger's like, yeah, I'll take that bet. And then they measured, and Jesse Ventura was disappointed and shocked to find out that he did, in fact, not have the biggest arm, which went to Schwarzenegger.
I love that story just because, again, at this time, Jesse Ventura was a wrestler, correct?
Yeah.
Mhm.
So you can understand he's a big boy, but he knows Arnold was like a professional bodybuilder, like the world's most famous professional bodybuilder, right?
Yeah.
This is a few years past that part in Arnold's career, too. I could see, thinking you have a chance and maybe going for that.
I think Jesse was counting on having just like, it's not about the most muscular, it's the bigger one. And I know Jesse, he's a thick boy, he's back in the day. So I think he was counting on having a little bit of extra, a little extra fat in there too.
Mass,
to
just general mass.
Yeah, like he's definitely not as ripped as
Jesse's country strong, as we call it around here.
The thick ass boy.
Thick boy.
And finally, last but not least, a couple tidbits around the filming, which was notoriously difficult because they did film outdoors for a large portion of it. So one of the stories I did not know prior to kind of just doing some quick IMDb trivia research was that Arnold Schwarzenegger frequently had to stave off hypothermia while filming the night scenes where he's covered in mud. His body temperature dropped several degrees, and he tried to stave it off by drinking a mixture of schnapps and something else, and instead just got drunk. So they were a little bit behind on filming, I guess, because of that. And of course, the other tidbit I came across, regarding the filming was that the set was frequently, kind of endangered, if you will, by like scorpions and real venomous snakes and things like that. So apparently the cast did not have a great time shooting this movie. Like, I mean, they did and they didn't. You can tell just from some of the interviews I came across that they look fondly on the movie overall, but definitely not the shooting process. Oh, one last thing. The Predator's blood was a mixture of KY and glow stick, jelly. So if you're wondering how they made that green glowing blood, that's how they did it. So, general impressions. Whoever wants to start. Actually, you know what? I always do this. George, we're going to start with you because this is your first pass. So, for any of these, or it's your first pass, I feel like I have to start with you
Okay.
because you have the purest view, right, of this. Like, you're not coming in with
Yeah.
any baggage, one way or the other.
So hot take. I was disappointed. I wouldn't say I disliked the movie, but I was I know the expectations were gonna have to be tempered after Alien and Aliens, but I was expecting this movie to be on at least on that level. I used to first number one and two I thought would be up there, but I don't I just it didn't do a whole lot for me personally. Like the story I could not care any less for personally. As far as an action movie goes, entertaining, fun. It was cool seeing, classic. It was like a classic action movie, right? Which the other two were not quite like that. I felt like they had more meat to them, more backstory, more interesting lore. Yeah, I don't really care. It's just like, and I'm sure it'll get explained better in subsequent movies. I would hope, anyways. But it's just like this random predator just out there, just doing his thing, whatever. And then given how much I feel like the first two Alien movies like were able to bridge the gap and create that movie magic with the xenomorph suit and kind of all the little tricks that they were able to do. I was kind of disappointed that a movie that had a lot more time, right? Like it had much more technology on its side, couldn't give me that same vibe. I thought the camouflage scenes, I'm sure that was super difficult at the time, were kind of lame. But I don't know. I did not feel as convinced with the Predator as it did with the Xenomorph. It's tougher, right? Because the Xenomorph isn't a lot of darkness, so you can kind of cover that a bit. And this one's outdoors. It's a lot of lighting. But it got better as the movie went on. It got better. It definitely peaked at the right time at the end, but it took a while for me to really care. It took a while to kind of like I first felt like the first 30-40 minutes of the movie I was just like not really hooked in until the action starts to happen, which takes a while. But I enjoyed the movie. I liked watching it. Spoiler, but to me it's just not on par with the other two movies we've watched, like not even close.
Yeah, Adam. How about you? This is not your first time, correct? You've seen this
I've seen it like once or
previously.
twice before.
Yeah.
George makes a good point. I really enjoy the Predator as the creature that's also coming with a little bit of past knowledge. So it's interesting to see his first time with it. Like you said, the back part of the movie is the best part of the movie. I understand the beginning of the movie is to establish these guys are badasses or whatever, but the movie sets up as if like there's a big mystery of this thing in the jungle, but like I've known what that is for 20 years. So it's like that setup doesn't really do much for me. But once the Predator starts being the Predator, I love it. All that stuff is great. All this stuff is fantastic. A lot of good one-liners in here. It feels very much like an 80s action movie, but they tried to do the creepy stuff from Alien, but not as well because Alien just does it way better. But I do enjoy it a lot. I enjoy Arnold Schwarzenegger. The entire cast is great. When we get the monster reveal, it's cool. Him fighting it, in the mud and doing all that stuff. I like all of that stuff. And again, I like the creature of the Predator. But I'm with George. Going back and watching this, I did not enjoy this movie as much as the first time. I don't dislike it, but I definitely see the shortcomings with the pacing of the movie, where it's like, yeah, there's again, I understand at the time in 1986 during the setup, that would be much more impressive than now. And I'm like, I already know what we're doing. I know what this invisible monster in the forest is. So
Yeah. That's where I had trouble with it too, because it's tough. So funny story, right? I would, before we started watching any of these movies, right? If you asked me what I thought was cooler, the Alien or the Predator, I would have told you Predator all day. That Predator is it's got to be much more of a badass. And I already knew everything the Predator could do, despite not having seen any of the Predator movies. A little bit of Predators, but that's it. But like I knew of him, and I obviously knew the Xenomorph. But to me, the Predator always seemed a lot cooler because he was more humanoid, right? He could move a lot better, and he just seemed like this unbeatable badass monster, not even monster person, right? Instead of just like a creature, he just seemed a lot more intimidating. But then watching the movie, I'm like, damn, like, you know, I'd rather, the Xenomorph did more for me in terms of getting me like more hyped, so far. So I'll be curious to see where they go from here. I did think the cast was great. I thought Arnold was awesome. I mean, it was no Mr. Freeze performance, um, but it was, it was good. Man, what's this guy's name? Crap, Apollo Creed.
Carl
Carl
Weathers.
Weathers.
Oh, Carl Weathers, yeah. I thought he was awesome too. I did not expect that little, little plot twist with him. I like the cast a lot. I will say, as far as maybe the writing, like they had to tell us these guys were badass, whereas in Aliens, they just showed us they were badasses, kind of thing, and they were, some of them were more human than these guys. These are just like, it just seemed like a group of expendables, you know. I like the development of the aliens, Marines a little bit more than these, though. I think the performances here were pretty good, maybe even better than some of the ones in Aliens. I just think these people were given a little bit less to work with. If it seemed like, in terms of their development.
Yeah, so I definitely want to compare the ensemble as part of our discussion, because so far all of these movies have been ensemble, films to a certain extent. I did want to touch, yeah, like the delineation of the movie. Like it starts off like, if you didn't show somebody the title sequence and like with the space and all that stuff, and just had the setup for this, like they would not know they were watching a sci-fi like movie, right? For the first 30, 45 minutes. Like it would seem like maybe there's just some masochistic, gorillas in the jungle that are skinning people and like doing shit. It becomes a completely different movie in the back half. Almost more of like a slasher film in a lot of ways, where you see people going down one by one. The kills are all very different and kind of creative. It's more akin to like a Jason film than it is, an action film for the second half of the movie. And I think for better or worse, like it does make it feel a little disjointed. You know what I mean? Like I love the back half of the movie. I like the front half of the movie, just simply because you get some of the one liners and you see everyone in action. And I imagine the thought process there was that like you see them wipe out this entire like guerrilla camp with like dozens of guys like with relative ease, and then like it's to show you that like they're not soft, but this thing is able to take them down with relative ease. So it kind of I'm assuming was to meant to show how powerful and deadly the Predator was. Yeah, the technology does get better, I will tell you, like with subsequent films, as far as like the camouflage effects and things like that, because there's not the reveal in the subsequent sequels. You see a little bit more of it. You get more gadgets and all that kind of cool stuff, which is neat. Yeah, I like this movie. This is one of those movies that like for me is like um I don't sit down, like I don't have to sit down and like pay ultra attention and love it the way like I love Alien and Aliens. Like, but this is one that it's like if it's on TV, like usually I'll stop and like just I'll watch it. Like it's just I like it. It's a lot of fun. And I mean it's iconic in a lot of ways for a reason. So yeah, I am with you guys. It's definitely not on a level, and I knew that kind of going into this, that like there was going to be a little bit of a a dip in quality, but that's only because the bar is set pretty high by those first two movies. Watching it chronologically,
Yeah,
so
no future spoilers or anything, but it is a disservice to start this entire series with, I mean, again, George, I'm not going to spoil anything. Literally, the best two movies in the entire series are the first two movies. Or they're up there. If they're not one and two, they're definitely in the top echelon. And this one, again, I still think is up there. But yeah, you go from literal like horror perfection, and then it's like this is still good, but it's just like you went from perfect to something that's very good.
I expected it, but I didn't expect it to start dipping with Predator. I thought I'd get a good Predator, I thought I'd get a Predator movie up at that level. But I feel like you expect that with movie franchises. I mean, you've got the Star Wars, right? The original trilogy, then the sequel trilogy, well, prequels, and the fucking debacle of the sequels. You got Lord of the Rings trilogy, then you get the Hobbit trilogy. Like it's tough, like it's tough to keep it going. But I definitely was expecting more for this particular movie. I'm not anymore. So
I will be curious to see, like, again, from a pure sensibility, what you think of the sequel, which is generally regarded as not as good as this one.
mhm.
But because of like listening to you like talk about like some of your hangups, like I wonder how you'll feel. And again, I don't want to say anything about two. Um, Even just like the opening like shot is you know, it's cool. Like it's a cool
Yeah.
setup. That's all I'll say about it. But yeah, I'll be curious to see like how you think one and two compare to one another, not having any of that like, baggage, but we'll see. Um, so let's move into, because somebody brought up the ensemble. So like let's move into that. Like let's talk a little bit about who your favorite character is. That's not Dutch, the Arnold Schwarzenegger character, as you know from past episodes. We're gonna kind of exclude, just to make it a little more interesting, the main character in these films, where that's appropriate anyway. Like some of these films I don't think have necessarily main characters, but for this one we're gonna say it's Schwarzenegger, right? He's last man standing. So
Yeah.
who is your favorite character, and how did you feel about the ensemble in general?
My favorite guy, I'm going this time in case Adam takes him, is the guy to your left behind you. I forgot what his name was, but I think he was like part
Billy?
Native American. Billy,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah, yeah.
For sure. And part of my issue with the ensemble is these guys are all badasses, but one way or the other, they all kind of start losing their shit. They all start to kind of fold, most of them anyway, start to fold under pressure, which I thought was kind of like, I didn't expect that to happen with these guys are this kind of level. But I felt like his character was pretty awesome because he changed a lot throughout the movie, and he's the one that just kind of embraced and accepted the shit that they're in, and just kind of like, he's like, we're all gonna die, and that's fine. Like it wasn't like what's his face, Bill Paxton's character, we're all gonna die. He was like, no, we're all gonna die, and let's get on with it, kind of thing. So,
Certainly not accepting of his fate in that like he gives up, but yeah, he's just
but
kind of like,
he's like not running away from it, like I'm not, like I'm just gonna go out on my terms, even though I thought it was crazy that he just dropped all his gear, but but I liked him. I liked seeing like how he reacted to things at the beginning, and how he kind of figures out what's happening and what they're dealing with, and I feel like he's the first one to really accept that they're dealing with something that is not of this earth, that they just do not understand and comprehend. And I also kind of like the fact that he didn't even really bother explaining it to anyone else,
yeah,
because
he's remarkably quiet.
yeah,
Like
like
when they ask him, he doesn't lie about it, but he certainly doesn't volunteer the information.
and it's,
Like,
it's because like so that's the one thing I did like about the development is I feel like you could get like he's like, I think he thought to himself, these people need to understand and experience it for themselves. Like they're not gonna, like, he couldn't explain it, in a way that would make sense for them. Like I don't know, but I kind of like the fact that he just kind of kept it to himself. Like I don't know. I thought it was interesting, but it was weird. But I liked him. I thought he was dope.
nice. How about you, Adam?
Well, my joke answer, which actually might be my real answer, is Hawkins. Just
Shane
because
Black's character.
Shane Black, I'm like, what? Shane Black's in this movie, and he's just always making jokes about his girlfriend's pussy, which is the funniest thing to me. Like, what a like a macho, like, yeah, I'm an army dude. Like, my girlfriend's vagina's huge. It's like, what? He's wild in this movie, and then I think he gets killed first, right?
Yeah, Hawkins is the first of the commandos to go down. Yeah.
I love that. But my actual favorite one is Bill Duke, who's Sergeant Mack, which is,
Yeah.
I mean, the other black guy besides Carl Weathers, just because he goes mental a little bit. He's like hiding. And he's like, I love when he grabs Carl Weathers,
Oh yeah.
like when he's hiding and just grabs him. He's like, shh. And he's so sweaty the entire movie. I love it. He's great.
Oh,
I like him in all his movies.
when he's fucking shaving.
He's shaving, dry shaving, and snaps it. And he goes crazy. I just like him as an actor. He's fun to see, and he has a pretty good death. He gets his head exploded, I believe. Or
Yeah.
his chest.
Yeah, it's the first. No, it's his head, because he sees the little triangle move up his arm, and then we, the audience, see it go like up his arm onto his forehead, and then just.
Yeah. Because he was ready to throw down, man. He was deranged, but he was ready to go. And I was like, all right, I like this. Yeah, just like the razor and just the sweat. When a dude sweats a lot and he's crazy, things are gonna happen.
Arguably not that there. I mean, there's not a whole lot of depth. Like, let's not kid ourselves, emotional depth. But he arguably has the deepest like emotional scene when he's saying goodbye to Jesse Ventura. Who's been killed. Where he kind of gives a little speech and puts the flask. Like. So yeah, I mean, he's probably the one of the most developed characters for sure. Who would I pick besides? I'm gonna go with Jesse Ventura's character Blaine, just because like you know he is like he's got like the MTV T-shirt. He's fucking rocking a minigun. He's got a cowboy hat on, like or kind of like a modified cowboy hat. Um,
He wasn't acting, I feel like.
yeah, I mean, like he's just got like all this bravado, even for those guys. You know what I mean? And time to let old Painless out of the bag. He's great, man. Like even like his reaction, like when Schwarzenegger takes the truck and throws it down the hill, and he's like, "What the fuck?" Like, I don't know, man. That guy always makes me laugh. Like, and he also has a pretty memorable death scene as well. The squirrel comes out of the woods or whatever, and he kind of chuckles, and then his whole chest is just spraying blood. And of course, they're all you can see behind me shooting into the woods. But yeah, I think he's probably my favorite supporting cast member.
No love for Dylan, huh?
I mean, we'll
Dylan,
get there
son of a
because
bitch.
he's on one of my other list here.
I just like
So
Carl Weathers. That's all it is.
yeah, Carl Weathers is great. It's not. It's just as far as like, I don't know, favorite characters. He's not on there because he's kind of a shithead, right? Like in the beginning of the movie, like for the most of the movie, like he tricks his friend like into coming in to do this job that he knows that he wouldn't do otherwise because it's essentially a mass assassination of a bunch of guerrillas and um he it's like everything's under false pretenses and he's kind of like barking orders to everybody. Like there's no leadership there. He's just kind of like, I'm in charge and like fuck you. Like um and obviously he has his arc that kind of progresses, but yeah, he doesn't make my list for that reason because he's kind of a dick for most of the movie.
I agree. Carl Weathers is great. Dylan is a dick.
Yeah, exactly.
Like
I
he
get
gets
that.
he literally every death is on him. And yeah, he kind of goes out in a blaze of glory, but he didn't do shit either. So
Yeah. So how about your favorite death? This movie's got a decent body count, kind of the one by one style for the most part. What's your favorite death scene?
I mean, it's a cop out. I don't know if it counts, but for me, it's the Predator.
Yeah,
Like the fucking boulder, just like the whole thing of how drawn out it was, and then he ends up he ends up exploding himself, kind of thing, or whatever. He
Yeah.
self
Like an arm
detonation.
nuke or something.
Yeah, and he, whatever he makes out in time. I thought, we'll see what happens to see if he's really dead or what the deal is with that. But
laughing.
yeah, laughing like a fucking creep, and of course because you get to hear Billy's voice again.
Yeah.
So it was such a creepy way to go out, where So I kind of enjoyed that. That had more meat to it than any other ones. It was hard to care for a lot of the characters, and the one character the character I like the most, you don't see him die. So
Now, for me, I'll go next. It's definitely Carl Weathers' character, not because it's satisfying, but like I just
Charm.
I love it. Like he's the still squeezing off the rounds, and like the camera pans down, and you see the arm like with the gun is just still firing off, and it's the first time I think you see the wrist blade for the Predator in the film too. Like really like like where he's running and he like comes out and lifts him up into the air, man. Like one handed. Like that's it's an epic scene, spoofed many times, or you can see edits online. My favorite's like Kermit the Frog is in the trees, like singing, what is it, Rainbow Connection or something like that, and like, Carl Weathers is like looking all freaked out. It's good stuff. But how about you, Adam?
I mean, yeah, that's probably it because the wrist blade is really cool. I mean, we get more cool Predator weapons, but I love those fucking wrist blades so much. I'll go Bill Duke's character because yeah, he just looks up in the little. That's the first. Oh, that's the first time we see the plasma cannon. It's one of the first times. It might be the first.
Definitely the dots, like the iconic
Yeah.
three dots.
The little tracker, and then it's just right as for and his whole. You see the back of his head blow out. I was like, oh man, they went there, and that's a really good one. I enjoy that a lot.
Absolutely. How about favorite scene in general? That's like not a death scene. Like, do you guys have a favorite sequence? Like, I'll go first on this one. Like, um, I think like, for me, it's probably the prep that Schwarzenegger's doing at the end, where you see him like completely like stripped of almost all of his shit, like because he's fallen off the waterfall, he's gotten his ass kicked, he's got 2 grenades and his knife, and he's making a fucking bow, he's setting up tripwires, like he's like, all right, like I'm not gonna be able to get past this thing, so my only hope is to fucking confront it, and you see him just like prepare to go to battle. Like I love it. The music's great, and they have the montage of him getting ready and the Predator like cleaning off his trophies. I just think it's a really well cut like you're in the final act. Like there's no mistaking that there's a big showdown coming. So it's kind of cool. And of course, screaming with the torch. Oh, good shit,
great.
man.
George, you go because I've got like 3, but they're all real short.
Okay, yeah, mine's was short too. I actually kind of like the part where he's kind of it leads up into that, or is it leading up or after, where he's crawling in the mud and he finally realizes that he can't be seen there, and has that. I feel like that moment, Arnold's character realizes that he has a shot. I feel like that's part of what like kind of gets him back in the fight, kind of thing. The fact that he starts to see a weakness. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, like it's the first good look at the Predator too, right? Like where he's like uncloaked because he's in the water, like water and the invisibility doesn't mix, as you'll see like in subsequent movies, and so yeah, he's like uncloaked, and you get really like a sense of like what this thing actually looks like for the first time, which is cool.
These little guns zoom around and look at stuff while he's looking at other things. Yeah, it's a good time. That was definitely one of my 3. So my other 2 are whenever they get I believe I can't keep calling him Bill Duke because that's the actor's name. But he picks up Jesse Ventura's minigun, and they all shoot into the woods, and they're just shooting for like 40 seconds straight, and then just like we didn't hit anything, and there's just nothing left in front of him. I was like, man, that is wild. And then followed up by that is leading up to it. It's corny because when it happened, like I knew George was gonna make fun of this, but when the Predator's swinging through the trees invisible. It looks goofy when he's swinging, but when he leans off of that tree branch and uncloaks, that shit is legit.
Yeah, that was so funny when you just see him go, like it was like a weird, soft little swing, and I'm like, what the fuck is that? Like some dude in a spandex green suit or something just doing.
They had to use red, actually. They had to because like the jungle was green and they used blue screen still back in the day. So they couldn't, they had to have something that would be in contrast to the sky and the trees. So red is what they used.
I thought that was so funny. When he's hanging out outside was dope. But before that,
that's where I was like, okay, yeah, this is the 80s because that's the best they could do. But like you said, when he leans down and the eyes flash, I'm like, oh yeah, that's dope.
Well, so if we're doing honorable mentions, I will say that Billy's death scene where he like grips his little talisman and like cuts the big like wound across his chest, and he's waiting on the bridge, American Gladiator style. When I was like like a young teenager especially, I fucking love that shit. I was like, oh hell yeah. And then he just instantly screams, like it's a great thing because you're like, oh hell yeah, we're gonna get a good fight scene, like this is gonna be cool. And then it's just like, nah, he just screams and dies like immediately.
I shouldn't have let him go out like that. I should have showed him fight or something.
Budget, maybe, I don't know. All right, cool. So, we'll say like we could do like, now I won't say favorite new addition to the series or lore, just simply because like this one doesn't. The next one will definitely have. I don't want to say too much, but like we'll be able to talk a little bit about that. Let me ask you this, like, before we get to does it hold up? Do you think this adds to like the sci-fi action or sci-fi horror genre? Like, do you think it's successful in doing that? Since we're not going to talk about like new lore quite yet with the Predator films, again, we'll get there. But like, do you think this is successful into bringing that genre forward contextually? Thinking back to like audiences in '87 seeing this, like.
I think it's really tough because it's so hard. Like I'm trying to put myself in shoes that I can't be in, right? Like it's impossible to know what it would have been like if I saw this for the first time back then or like shortly after, within at least 5-10 years. But for me, for sci-fi, no. Action movie, yes. But for a sci-fi movie, not really, because I feel like to get the most out of the Predator, you needed a better use of technology, right? His real sci-fi stuff are things that were just too difficult to pull off, right? Like the invisibility. Sometimes it's really cool, sometimes it's a little clunky. The way that he sees, that looked like shit for most of the movie.
Yeah, I'm surprised. Like going
Like,
back, I was like, dude, I remember this looking way better. And I think my brain is like mixing
yeah,
like future films with how they do it. Like with
yeah.
this, like, I mean,
The
again, probably
thermal
cool
thing
at the
looked,
time, but whoo,
yeah, I felt
yeah,
like the thermal did not hold up. It looked really bad. So when you get rid of that, then you got his wrist blade, which is more of like a slasher action type thing. You've got his rockets and his guns, which is more action. It's just less. The real only sci-fi aspect to it that is done well is his costume, right? Is what he looks like. But to me, this is an action movie first and foremost. And I didn't even think of this is kind of like a slasher horror movie, killer type movie in a sense. And I didn't even think about that until you brought that up. But I think it's even more of that than it is a sci-fi movie at this
yeah,
point. I think it's gonna change once they can like, and that's kind of what I'm. Maybe those movies aren't as good, but that's kind of what I'm excited to see because I feel like the Predator has a lot more you can do with as technology gets better in the series that I'm kind of excited about or looking forward to, anyways, because I just pictured him being so much more badass than some of the little things that we saw here. But
yeah. I think a lot of it comes down to, peeking behind the curtain. Like they changed the design of the creature like really close to filming. I think it's for the better. Obviously, it's iconic. Like it looks great,
100%.
but like the things that they were attempting with the vision, the invisibility were new, concepts. So like I think they get an A+ for like trying something new and then
Yes.
refining it, but like yeah, I don't think it's quite there yet. And the way where like I think you could argue like they nailed like the design of like the alien creature in the first movie, like like
Yeah.
it's like they didn't really need to refine that
Yeah.
like too much, like
It's it's a tough question to answer in a vacuum because I feel like
yeah,
on paper, their design and their idea of what they wanted to do, awesome sci-fi. But in what they're actually showing you and getting you to engage in it, I don't think that was groundbreaking. I think, and I think it's a testament to what you just said. I think what probably happened back then is people imagined it, like they saw it and it kind of helped, like I don't know if imagine, because you're actually seeing it, but like you thought it was better than it actually is, because you can kind of like use your imagination to be like, oh my god, like you're more freaked out at the fact that this guy can go camouflage than you are at believing you're seeing an actual camouflage figure in the on the screen. So maybe it's a little bit of that kind of putting like tricking the mind a little bit to kind of feeling like you're more engaged than what it's actually showing. So it's really hard for me to go back now and be like, no, that shit doesn't hold up. You give me some thermal vision like that now and the fuck out of here, man.
yeah. So I mean, we can tie that into it as far as that holding up, but
Yeah.
like I think it's one of those things like similar to Jaws. Like I think sometimes the most successful scenes are like when there's not the special effects, when you just know something's out there, like when the camera's panning across the trees and you see like Billy like reacting to it, for example. Like I think that scene works better than some of the ones where like it's like camouflage and like sticks out like a sore thumb, like because the effects just aren't quite there and you're meant to not be like quite see it like immediately, but of course you do. The more time that goes by, I think it just kind of like that stuff holds up like less and less,
It's
unfortunately.
especially is what was it like 420p when the movie first came out, and now it's like in 4K, so
It
you can see
probably
every
looked
little
better.
detail. Yeah, probably better was smudgier.
Yeah, for sure. It probably did. It was probably a little bit easier to see. So, like, all in all, the movie, in my opinion, holds up. But the stuff that they do that is supposed to be groundbreaking, supposed to be new, that does not. Unlike Aliens, where literally every bit of that holds up to me. Yeah, that movie, you could tell me that movie was made later, and I'd believe you. I'm
Yeah,
just
only a
surprised that
year
it's a
apart between the two, but I think it's just like
wait. What?
so.
No, no, Alien, the first one.
Oh, Alien. Yeah,
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 yeah.
yeah, yeah. So that's yeah, that would have been 8 years prior. I think like it's a why sets, right? Like film sets are used still to this day. You have so much more control, right? Like so I appreciate location shooting. Like I think it's awesome that like that they shot this out in the jungle. It does lend authenticity there, but as far as like when you start injecting or trying to inject special effects into that, like it's harder because like you don't have perfect control over like the lighting and all that other kind of stuff that you would like on a set. So um yeah, interesting. Do you think it holds up, Adam?
Yeah, well, I say what it adds, kind of going on both of them. What it adds and what holds up, I think, is the creature design. Kind of like George was saying, the way that he looks with the armor, and then the reveal of taking the mask off. I think all that still is great. I love the way that creature looks, like the way that he acts, the way that he moves. All that is awesome. To have a 7'8" man in that costume and beat the shit out of Arnold is
Seven foot
great.
nine. 7 foot
He's
nine.
He's a massive guy, and I loved it. And he takes the mask off, he screams, he's got the mandible. Like again, looking at that original design, thank God they didn't go with that because that was awful. So that stuff I think is cool. The idea of the technology, again, because at the time seeing the cloaking, it doesn't look good now, but a personalized cloaking device, I can't think of anything else that had it. Maybe ships would have cloaking back in
Star
old
Trek, yeah.
sci-fi, yeah, Star
Like
Trek and stuff, but a personal cloaked hunter, I don't think I've ever seen that. So the ideas of the technology I think are good. Those don't necessarily look great, but the idea and the design of the creature I think are still. I love the way this dude looks and the way
Yeah.
that he acts. So
It's tough because you can't like they could have taken the easy way and say he's camouflage, you can't see him, but you have to show him, in a sense. So it's a really tough thing to like to pull off because he's got to still be visible to a viewer, even if he's not visible to the actual people there. And as far as the costume design, all that I thought was awesome. The one thing that I think in hindsight they probably shouldn't have shown, the only thing that I had an issue with is the one quick scene in which he's pressing buttons on his wristband and it clearly looks like he's wearing an oversized rubber glove. Yeah, it's like going like this or whatever. Yeah, I was like that probably could have done away with showing that or maybe showing it in a different way because that clearly just like he wouldn't have a thing where he has to press buttons like that. It doesn't make any sense. So that looked kind of weird, but yeah,
I
he looked
think
like a dude wearing a glove, trying wearing a costume, trying to press buttons.
yeah, I mean, yeah, there's definitely some stuff that you're like, again, from like what I remember watching this for the first time to now, like the strings start kind of like being a little more like visible, so to speak. Um, oh, sorry, he was 7'2", Kevin Peter Hall. I happened to glance over at my IMDb, so just so we're accurate. Speaking of which, we should give a shout out to Kevin Peter Hall who got to reprise that role one more time in Predator 2. He was also Harry and Harry and the Hendersons, so he played the Bigfoot, which is awesome. And sadly passed away from complications due to the AIDS virus shortly after Predator 2 was released. But what a good job being like, I mean, his height, like physically imposing, but like the way he moves as the Predator, like in some of the sequences, like, he kind of brings a little bit of otherworldliness like to that. And I love it, like his battle pose, spreading like kind of his arms and legs kind of remind me of like the Haka a little bit. Like he just does a lot of really, really cool stuff and probably a very uncomfortable costume. I imagine probably wasn't the most like comfortable or wieldy thing to wear.
also fun to see a smart monster because in slasher films, Jason and all those guys aren't smart. They can just mess you up because whatever, they're zombies, supernatural powers. But like when Arnold's like, "Come on, get me, come on," and it just looks up, he's like, "Nah, dog, it's a trap. I'll go around." It's like, damn,
Yeah.
you screwed my guy. Like they're smart, and that's always fun to see.
Absolutely. Let's talk a little bit, before we get on to the voting, since we're not going to do like new lore, like the lore of the Predator is cool. So we get some things established in this first film, right? We know that obviously he takes trophies, like that becomes a important part of the Predator culture. So you see, ripping the spinal cord and like the head off, and like he's got his little trophy bag. We see or we hear from what's her name? Is it Anna? Anna? No,
The captive.
the hostage. Yeah,
Yeah.
we learned from her that like this is not the first time this has happened, and it
Yeah.
typically happens in the hottest years, like which
He's
is cool, and it's
bored.
also important. Like it's important, to the lore. Um, we also like we get like the first indication that this thing has a ethics code, right? Like where he says, "Hey, it didn't kill you because you weren't armed," right? Like so, like in other words, like it
You're
is
not a
hunting
threat.
for sport, not for like masochistic or not masochistic, sadistic reasons. So I think all that's really cool. Are there any other like tidbits that you guys liked, like as far as like touches go? Anything I'm missing?
I mean, yeah, it definitely hunts because it wants to prove that it can kill you, like straight up. Which I always think is good. I'm trying to think. You good, George? You're about to say something.
Yeah, no, no. I like the lore of like the locals, right? The people that are local, they kind of like know this thing is there. They don't try not to fuck with it. Like they kind of respect it. And then you've got the homies here that want to come fuck it up. You know, like you gotta come and kill it. But yeah, I mean, I didn't. There's not a whole lot, I think, in this first movie. And to be fair, there wasn't a whole lot in the first Alien movie. So it'll get developed over time. So I'm very curious to
It's
see.
enough though. Like I'm surprised at how much this stuff carries over. Like
We'll find out.
they do a pretty solid job. Like
But as far as someone who's just seen just the first movie, we just know. Oh, I don't know why he's there. I don't know why he's there, what he's doing there, where he comes from, all that kind of stuff is all these questions that I have. But you know, I like how they talk about him. I like how they definitely hype him up. I mean, he's a badass, but like the when you hear the lady talking about him when she sees and like saying that he's the jungle or whatever, he's part of the jungle or whatever. Like I thought that was super cool. So
how good was the Spanish translation from the commando? I was like, I wonder if George is gonna be like, that's not what she fucking said. Like
yeah, I mean, no, it's pretty good, but speaking both languages, it's scarier the way that she describes it.
yeah,
Like
really?
there are things that translate. I don't know. I feel like Spanish has a lot more emotion in some of like some of the I don't know sentences you use or whatever. So the way that she said it was a little bit scarier for sure than saying, "Oh, the jungle's coming alive." Like, nah, he's like he is the jungle. Like the jungle took him. It wasn't he. She doesn't really identify him as being separate. Like he is like saying like he is the jungle. He is
That's
all of
cool.
this kind of thing. So, but it was good.
Nice. And of course, the self detonation too, like the last stand, kind of kamikaze at the end. That's something else that is an important part of the lore. As we mentioned, like for that finale, like when kind of cornered and like defeated, like if that thing still has breath in its lungs, it's going to try to take you down with it. Like it's still fair game. Like I have this backup device here, kind of thing. So,
Yep.
Oh, and copying people's voices.
I
oh
love that,
yeah, yeah,
man.
yeah.
That I love. That I thought I actually thought that was a close second for my favorite scene. I put it in the death, so that's why I didn't want to talk about it again. But I just thought him doing that shows a whole other side. Like you said he's not sadistic, but fuck yeah, he is.
A
He
little
is
bit, yeah.
sadistic. Like he is like just the fact that he's taunting them. That's not something that you commonly see in a film like this, right? The taunting.
True.
Like you think you got me, motherfucker, and he starts using his own like comrade's voice to laugh at him. Like
Turn.
yeah, like he
Yeah.
is he's something else, and obviously we're not gonna see the last of that. But yeah, I thought that gave a whole nother side of him for something that doesn't speak. For you to still be able to get its personality,
Yeah.
I do think this movie does a really good job of that. You know,
Awesome. All right. Well, who's ready for our first ranking?
are we gonna go from third to first, or are we gonna go one, two,
Yeah, we could
three?
do that because I think that'll be less of a, or like, it'll be more suspenseful that way, less of a surprise. So
Oh, I guess you could
I'm gonna
announce
do
three and
the
then one. I
yeah,
don't
I'm gonna
know.
do 3, 2, and 1, and then I'll tell like the individual rankings and how it broke down. Okay, so coming in third place at our first benchmark is Predator, with 30 total points. So because there's 12 films, I'm assigning the maximum number of points to like whatever you have first, and then like decreasing by 1 point if that makes sense. So this will adjust over time. Uh, in second place with 34 points, we have Aliens. Aliens, plural, is in second place. And that means that Alien, with 35 points, just 1 point, is numero uno. And I got to tell you, I had a hard time. Like, I almost picked Aliens for my first choice. So I'll talk about my ranking first, which was Aliens, Predator. But I had to kind of think about like how do I want to approach like the ranking system, and I think I'm like going straight with like what do I think is like the best like film out of all these, and I think Alien like is like for me anyway like the best film. I think it's tightly paced, it's groundbreaking, it's phenomenal like in all aspects of artistry, so music, set design, like costume design, all that, like, and it's just a tiny hair above. I think Aliens is my favorite like out of those, but not, I don't think it's the best, not quite, and it's just such a tiny little hair to split, but that's where it came down for me. Adam, you also had the identical ranking, and George, you were the outlier, so we'll talk about you last. Like, so kind of give us your insight into how you rank these, and yeah, like
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that. Where I sit down and I look at it, I'm like, first Aliens, I'm like, no future ranking spoiler, whatever. They're probably gonna stay at the top for me. We'll see. My mind can be changed, but those movies are made so exceptionally well. And then the only difference for me, like you're saying, it's very, very small, is that the first movie I think is the perfect example of a horror movie. Like I think it's basically a perfect movie, and even though I didn't rank it as that, I still think it's basically a perfect movie. And then I gotta go back 1979. Like, how did y'all do this in 1979? That is wild. Aliens, I think I would prefer to watch multiple times. Like if it's like, hey, I just want to sit down and watch a movie, Aliens is for sure my go-to. But I'm just like sitting down as a movie, and like if I wanted someone to watch these movies, I would say, yeah, watch the first one first, because I think that this is the perfect jumping off point, and this movie is basically perfect to me. So, and then I guess Aliens is also a perfect action movie, but I think just the little bit of extra horror that we get from the first movie and not really knowing what's going on, I think just edges it out just a tiny bit for me.
and
But
there's no aliens without Alien.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean there's not, and I
That's
don't.
that's a terrible that's
No,
a tough thing. You could say that about any movie. There's no Godfather 2 without Godfather 1.
yeah, but I think Godfather 2 is a superior
It is.
film, but I mean like for this type of genre, like, right, like there's so much established, like everything from Ripley to like Xenomorph, like life cycle, like there is no not only is there no aliens without Alien, but like like we talked about in our first episode, there's so many things that don't happen, or like don't happen for a long time had this film not come along. But it is a razor thin margin, like I will be clear on that. Like it's not like I don't think it's definitive. I really agonized over that decision, but like Adam's right, like you would tell somebody like if you watch Alien and like you don't like it, like there's no reason to go further than that. Like I can't see how you would possibly enjoy like the subsequent sequels if you hated the original like film, right? Like
not gonna lie, I also thought Chris was put Aliens over it. I thought it was gonna be the outlier here, so I'm pretty shocked, to be honest with you.
yeah, I kind of figure that's why I wanted to keep it close to the chest. I did agonize over it, but it's like, yeah, Aliens is my favorite, but that doesn't mean it's the best. Like if I'm looking at it objectively, I think Alien just edges it out. George, tell us about your your rankings a little bit, and like kind of give us some insight.
So, I mean, I'll preface it by saying it's my rankings, right? So
Yeah.
my and we kind of already talked about it. The reason why it's both of your favorite films, it's my favorite of the two as well. So to me, the movie that it's my ranking. So I took that as like the movie that does the most for me. If this is my favorite movie, it's the best movie because it got me to believe that it's to make it my favorite. So that's kind of why I decided. So I agree with all of your points 100%. They're all completely accurate. I guess I just went with slightly different criteria for myself. There's no right or wrong, right? There is no right or wrong. It's just you are splitting hairs. I will say it was an easy decision for me. It's just personal taste. I love the first one. I really enjoyed it. It's just for me, I thought Aliens is as perfect as a sequel can get.
Yes.
And there's some really good ones out there because it gave me everything that Alien gave me and more. And everything that I thought might have been missing from the first one. Like if you guys go back and watch the shows and you listen to me, I wish I saw this more in action. I wish I got a little bit more action. I wish I know a little bit more about what was going on. Well, boom, check in Aliens, right? They talk to us about the lore. We learn about the queen, how they feel, they think that there's like rhyme and reason. And then of course you get all this action on both sides. They delivered everything that I would have liked to see and then some. So to me, it is the better movie because it built off of one in the most perfect way. As far as being innovative and all that, of course, the first one takes the cake because it's you created that from scratch, and the second one you had something to work with. But like I mentioned in the past show, is I think it's incredibly difficult to take someone else's project and build on it and make an equally or better compelling story or whatever, and I think that's an art in its own right, and I thought that was done beautifully, so yeah, no right or wrong. It was a simple decision for me, but it's not that I think the second one is significantly better than the first. It's just
Yeah,
it just
taste.
did yeah, it just did more for me. I will say I don't think Predator should be third. I put it sixth.
Dude, I'm gonna be so curious. I think to me, the the most interesting part of our rankings is gonna be like definitely like the next set because we'll have three more movies under our belt. So to give you the audience a little sneak preview here, we will have Predator 2, Alien 3, and then Alien Resurrection. So we're going to be doing another Predator film and then two Alien movies, one of which I think gets a bad rap. And I'll be like, we're going to watch the assembly cut, which is as close to what David Fincher was going for. He kind of gave his blessing on it and said that like, yeah, that's the one to watch. But and then you have Alien Resurrection, which is what you get when Hollywood goes like, "Hey, this guy is an artistic filmmaker. Maybe he'll inject like some artistry back into to Alien." And that's where I'll leave it there. Like,
I'll just say, not. It's amazing. We're going to get 6 movies in before we possibly have a movie that's not good. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
If that was to happen, I'm not saying it's going to. Just
I'm very curious because I want to see some action. I actually want to see some bad ones. I've been wanting to watch a bad movie for a while.
I think
Yeah,
it's a while before we get to one where I would call it just across the board bad. Like
or
they're
comically,
in there. There's some that are in there for sure. But
you're
like
going to love the AVP movies. If you want like fun but not good, you're going to have a good time.
That's so I'm gonna like I made it pretty clear. I'm going to be more biased towards like newer technology, even if the story is shit, because these first couple movies have actually changed how I'm assessing these movies because I was not expecting that like from that kind of deep storytelling and build up from the first and second one. I was not expecting that at all. I was expecting your typical Jason, Freddy Krueger movie or a little bit of Transformers type things. Like it's just like this killing machine thing. I did not expect this whatsoever. So now I'm going to, like you had this, you got this blueprint. If you guys start fucking it up, I'm gonna nail you for it. For me, I just didn't think Predator was in the same class as these two. I thought it was a good movie, but I just didn't think it was in the same class. So man, I'd be surprised if it stays third for me personally, but be a little sad if it stays third for me personally.
I think you can make some
We
arguments. Like
peaked.
it'll be really weird to see like again from a pure perspective for you, like where you put stuff. Like how you react to stuff, down the line. But yeah, like I'm with Adam. Like some of the later movies, like objectively you can't call them like good necessarily, but like in terms of fun, like I remember, seeing AVP Requiem, like um I mean, half in the bag. Like we like seriously went from like day drinking all day. Like one of our friends uh drove us to the theater, and like I mean, 6-7 pints in, that movie's a blast. But like subsequent viewings of it, I'm like, yeah, this movie's not good, but it's still kind of fun and awesome. Like, and I won't say much more besides that, but like, so it kind of has that maybe a little bit of that, like, silly quality to it where like, you can tell somebody like, listen, like if you're wanting depth, like this is not going to be it, but like,
Yeah.
it's silly and stuff.
And that's the thing. So you tell me like I'd rather watch any Fast and the Furious or Expendables movie over this Predator movie we just watched.
So
I
you
just
may
think those,
you may rank some.
so I just think those are more entertaining movies because they don't try to be something that they're not. So that's kind of where you get like where you lose me a little bit when you.
Me and George are gonna have the exact same favorite Predator movie. I can tell.
It's just if the movie's just about just fun action, like then that's fine. But sometimes that's the problem that I felt like this movie was trying to explain some stuff, but You know, it wasn't satisfying enough. If it was just straight action, more like if they got to the Predator stuff a lot quicker and it was the same kind of action, just a little bit more prolonged, I'd rate it higher. I just felt like it tried to give me a bro movie. It tried to give me three different movies in once, and you can tell.
Yeah.
So
We'll see. You know, the like I said, I think certainly like the next two rankings, like and the like the total ranking will be interesting, but the next two especially because I feel like there's a pretty like kind of gradual like decline and some incline depending on how you feel about stuff, and then like as you get to the back half, like there's some pretty sharp like plummets, you know, in quality, and then like it kind of inches up a little bit, but like I'll be really curious to see where some stuff ends up. I think that's where we're gonna have a lot more variety in our personal list. Is like that those middle like movies, you know, like where that stuff all kind of lands. So
Oh yeah, these next group of rankings are going to be wild. They're going to be all over the place. After
that,
1 and 2, they're going to be completely different. I guarantee it.
yeah, but that's gonna make it fun. I think you know, like to really see like where we come down on that, and like I said, curious to see. Like I grew up with all these. Like I think Alien 3 was the only movie like you know for everything that came after that I didn't see in theater. So I saw every single one of the like so from Resurrection like on like I saw in movie theaters, but like Alien 3, Aliens, Alien, Predator, Predator 2 I didn't. So like I do have a little bit of that like nostalgic like baggage probably a little bit with some of these, but all right. Well, that brings us to the end. Anybody want to cover anything else before we wrap it up?
no, man.
No. All right. Well, our next show will be Predator 2. As a reminder, no ranking check ins for the next couple, but we'll be watching that released in 1990 with Danny Glover, Bill Paxton, Gary Busey, and there's somebody else I'm missing. Who else? Adam, help me out. Anybody else big in the movie?
I don't remember Predator 2 at all. This will be really fun.
Okay.
Arnold Schwarzenegger.
I mean, I don't want to like tell you yes or no for like characters, but yeah,
He's not in the movie,
I
God.
went kind of no, but it is a completely different feel. And that's all I'll say. Like you know, in a lot of ways, like I said, the opening shot is pretty classic because you know there's like a little bit of a kind of like fake out trick thing you'll see. But all right, well, give us a like, share, and subscribe. Thanks for hanging out with us for the hour ish, and we will see you next time for Predator 2.
Peace.
Bye.